they say they question you and stuff as well. Like, they're like, are you sure I can eat all of this? And some of them been having a little bit of sweets and stuff as well. And so they were like, so we're just having a conversation about that. But I guess just in layman's term, man, like, you know, what's some of that thought process? I know that, it's down to the minute detail when you look at, how much, kind of carb load, depending on their training and etc. But something I've been noticing, even like leading up to fight week as well, man, like these guys are they're well taken care of, their nutrition, and they're eating quite a bit as well. And then there's that period, even just the fight week, where you manage to get their weight down nicely, man. I mean, and it doesn't seem like you're completely stripping their food off, but and obviously they're not eating as much leading up to it. But even like, week off, like traditionally, even couple of weeks off from a fight, man, people tend to kind of, have very minimal food. But these guys seem to be well taken care of even leading up to fight week. So is that something like, obviously, I'm not deep into the studies of it, but is that something that you've kind of through your studies or is it just purely just based on their training that they have the ability to be able to eat a certain amount and then kind of, strip it off leading into fight week?
Yeah, man, it's a couple of things, I guess. Like the first one of like, why can they eat so much is because like they burn a lot of calories, right? Like they burn a ridiculous amount. I don't think people appreciate how much energy like these guys go through. And when you talk about energy, people always talk about like calories through like energy expenditure through exercise, and that's only one component, man. Like you've got your basal metabolic rate, which is your big one, which if you do all this right and you've got someone in a good metabolic state, they'll have a higher amount of calories that they'll just burn being them throughout the day. Then you add on top 2 training sessions a day, that's extra calories. And then there's like another component of energy expenditure called NEAT, which is like non-exercise activity. And I guess that would be like, I don't know, like you brushing your teeth or just moving around, me doing weird hand motions, but that all contains like NEAT requires calories to do that. And you find with these guys, when they're more active, they have a higher NEAT, they're up and about, they're moving, they're doing all that. So their energy expenditure compared to the normal person like you and me is just through the roof. So you've got that extra leeway that way. So yes, you are giving them more calories, but in saying that, to lose weight, you need to be in a deficit. So yeah, probably more overall calories, but you've got to be in a deficit. What you do to get around like the physical, okay, if you want to go and you want to sit down and you want to eat a meal, you want to eat a big meal and you want them to eat a big meal, and it's called volume eating. So it's not necessarily eating high amounts of calories, but you can give these guys, say 6-7 meals a day that can be moderate calories and they can still eat in a deficit, but they're high volume. And then you just stack it with things like fiber, and you obviously put in everything that they need. You put in their protein, you put in lots of carbs and everything, but you can stack it up with like protein salads, all of these more lower carb options, lower calorie options, sorry. And so the meals do look quite huge, but like when you kind of crunch all the numbers, they're sitting pretty perfectly in that calorie deficit. But given that calorie deficit is probably a lot more calories than say what you and I would eat in a calorie deficit, you know what I mean? So, but that's come a long way, bro. Like I think over the years, like you said there before, like I think fighters have that mentality where it's got to be less is more, and like weeks out, you're like, man. Like, man, I've done it. You've done it. Like, we've all done it, and like you go through it, bro. And I think now I'm just kind of at a point with my career where I think it's starting to be fun again. I think I went through that. Not that it never wasn't fun, but I think when you initially get exposed to the science side of it, it's like, oh wow, this is all new. And then I was fortunate enough, I just got to like jump straight in. I got to experiment with so many athletes and then work my way up, and I got to do it with the top level guys. And then I got to do this process, this whole fight camp and fight week process with the very, very best. And then I just did it over and over and over again. And it's like anything, bro, it kind of gets a little bit repetitive. And so like, I kind of got very curious, like, well, how far can you push these principles and these boundaries? And it's all science, right? And it's all like everything within the scope of science. And I think nowadays you're seeing guys like other practitioners coming in, and I kind of feel like we're kind of past that. We're past of doing like, if you buy a textbook and you go, okay, this is how I'm going to cut weight during fight week. Like, I feel like we've kind of gone past that. And like, for example, I've got a guy making
100%,
weight
man.
this
Like
morning.
yeah.
I've got a guy this morning making weight, bro. And like last night, like I told him, I was like, man, go get like a big bowl of ice cream and get 2 full like milk chocolate bars and eat them.
Yeah.
And like he'll easily come in on weight. And it's just like, we're figuring out now, you don't have to stick to these things. It's such an unknown. And I think we jumped into that unknown. We figured it out. And now that we figured it out, we're like, okay, let's push these boundaries as hard as we can.
Yeah, because it's something that, and yeah, 100%, like you were saying, like, it's just, it's just something that I had noticed a lot, like recently with you guys and with your athletes and just the way they were eating. And you were talking about the, I'm just going to backtrack a little bit. You're talking about the metabolic rate, the metabolic state, is it? Yeah. So can you just touch on that? Like what you mean by that? Like when there is that because the sense that I get is even like, for example, you just touched on, you know, one of your guys, you know, that's cutting weight, you know, it was this morning, and he told me to go have ice cream. Is it a sense that you're almost forward thinking, like, you know what the body's burning and you know what you know that this is how much calories are burning per day. So it's almost like, you know that, hey, if he ends up eating this, he's going to be fine. It's going to burn off at the rate that he's going. Is that a sense of like forward thinking in what you're doing as well, knowing that this is what the body's doing and this based on their training and based on their lifestyle and etc.
Yeah, I guess for him, bro, is like he's at the very back end of fight week. And so all the hard work's been done. So he's been dieting for 8 weeks. He's done his fight week strategies. And I guess for him in that very situation, I like to do that with all the guys now. It's like you're so far past the point where, you know, people will eat this and they'll be like, oh my God, I'm going to put on all this weight. And it's like you're so far past the point where you eating that is going to do anything. Your body is just going to rip it up when you're asleep. Like your liver is just going to like turn it into glucose and your body's going to use that because we've already cut down all week. But yeah, going back to that question, like what is metabolic rate? So metabolic rate is I guess is the amount of calories that you use at rest. So everybody has an individual metabolic rate, and it's just to keep your body functioning. Like your organs need calories to function. The 11 bodily systems need calories to function for you to be you, for you to walk around, perceive the world and be alive. And the thing is with athletes, they should technically have a higher metabolic rate. And there's a few factors that play into it, like their activity levels, their hormones, and a big one is like their body composition. Like they've got a lot more lean mass compared to fat, and lean mass is what we call more metabolically active. It's not necessarily that if you're more muscular, you're going to have a higher metabolic rate, but it's a lot of factors where if you're more active, you've got your hormones working properly, you should be probably burning more calories at rest. So yeah, like you said, man, like these guys have a higher basal metabolic rate, and circling back, that's why we can feed them more, 100%. Even when they're in a calorie deficit, right? And you know that. And I think the problem, like we're going back to it, you and I have done it, that less is more mindset, especially when we go to cutting weight. When you get to that fight week, bro, you're not trying to be in a calorie deficit. You're not trying to lose fat that week. So there's no reason that you should be eating less than your basal metabolic rate, which is still, you know, for a lot of guys, it should be between 1,800 to 2,000 calories, you know, around there. That's still a decent amount of food, whereas most fighters like fight week will eat like a can of tuna a day. That's it, with like 300 calories or something. So you should be able to stack on. It's just you're using other principles to lose non-essential mass during that fight week, and that's moving water essentially in the body by manipulating fiber, salt, and carbohydrate. So yeah, that's essentially what metabolic rate is. And yeah, like you said, we can feed these guys these higher things because we know their body's just going to burn through it, and we've done all the hard work getting to that point.
It's interesting, man. Yeah, no, because yeah, it's just and you would know as well, Geordie, like especially for athletes, like you know, it's just for their head as well, just being able to eat, and you know, there's a sense of calmness, and you know, just their training will be so much more efficient as well, and just mentally as well, right? Like, you know, when you get to have an ice cream, it's like heaven, you know, at that point of their camp, or at, you know, where whenever they're training, and you know, they're deep into their fight camp. You know, I just think that I just think mentally as well, and physically, their performance would be so much more better as well. The way they turn up to training and etc. as well. Like, that aspect of it. Sometimes goes people don't really realize, like, just getting up in the morning, being able to go to training, and when you have that when you have that real strict diet, that plays a big part in getting your ass up off bed and going to training, and vice versa, doing it every day. So it's just so good to see, like, that principle change, and that ideology change, and changing it from less is more, and now you can eat and train hard, but eat, and know that your body's going to burn it. And I just think mentally as well, athletes, I think puts them in a better space as well, and one of the things that I was also I didn't get to fully watch it, bro, but I'm very interested in it as well, and something that I've been kind of just just doing my own, I guess, my own reading is I recently saw you have a doctor on a talk about sleep aid, and it's an interesting topic. Like, number one, what's your thoughts on, just in terms of, just, I guess, sleep aid, and does obviously, I know, nutrition plays a part in everything, but just like, what's your thoughts? And in terms of just even, sleep is such a, if not one of the most important things, that we require every day, right? But there's tendencies to have broken sleep. There's tendencies to have, like, you think you've had a really good sleep, you wake up tired. Like, number one, like, what's your thoughts on sleep aid? And number two, like, what are some of the principles that, I guess, you put onto your clients and your athletes in terms of making sure that they get a good night's rest? Is it nutrition focused? Is it a mix of a lot of things? Like, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I guess there's a few things there. Like, one, I think sleep is hugely important, and like Dr. Bender said, if it wasn't important, it's like the most extreme, massive stuff up of evolutionary biology ever. Like, if we didn't have to do it, then why do we spend a third of our life doing it? And I think, and you don't have to even go back and dig into studies. They've done studies where they sleep deprive people, and you keep them up for 60 to 70 hours, and they go in like a manic state, and their body just starts breaking down. But you don't even need to, like, read into that to appreciate. Like, everyone knows, you pull an all-nighter, like, you stay out all night, even if you're not, like, partying or whatever, stay up all night playing your Xbox, or just get a bad night's sleep. How terrible you feel the next day, and it takes you a couple of days to get over that. Even jet lag is a good example of that. And I think, like, sleep is the bedrock, right? Because, like, I think you can argue till the cows come home, like, what is its role in performance and health? And I think there's enough literature to say that it's a foundational component to allow your body to, say, lose fat, to manage stress, to build muscle, to do all these other things, to recover properly. Yeah. But, like, just on a behavioral or mental side of it, I think that's the most important thing, because I think today, especially nowadays, everyone's kind of in this, like, game of optimization, right? Like, I call it, like, climbing the hill. Like, everyone wants to talk about what you can do to optimize it. Like, I want to get a Whoop band. I want to measure all my different levels of sleep. Like, am I getting in all this? I want to see how many steps, when really, like, a lot of people are still climbing the hill. So I think, like, at very, very foundation, like, if you want to be good at a sport, you have to be good at a sport. Like, you can have the best night's sleep, you can have the best nutrition, best strength conditioning, but if you don't know how to throw a punch and you go in a boxing fight, you're probably going to get smashed. Like, that's just fact. So like, once you kind of get that down pat, you need to start looking at it a bit more holistically. Like, okay, break it down. You want to go learn how to throw a punch. Do you think you're going to be able to learn how to throw a punch when you're half asleep and falling asleep in class? So it's just even that basic, bro. But you can break it down, especially when we get to these more elite guys. And like Dr. Bender spoke about, it's your recovery, right? So, like, this is what a lot of people, unless they've done it themselves or they're around those athletes, they don't appreciate it. Where you and I, we work, 8-10 hour days for our job. These guys are doing that for training, and they have to do almost equal that for recovery to make sure that their body's good. And a huge part of that recovery is their sleep. Like, I can't tell you the amount of elite level athletes that have put so much money and so much time invested in systems like breathing to get a better night's sleep to be able to recover. So I think when you can break it down, you can do all the science of it and whatever, but sleep really for your recovery, and your training is only as good as your recovery. And I guess is point is that we give our guys is like, you don't eat like an hour and a half, 2 hours before you go to bed, let everything digest so you don't feel full. I'm really big on like the blue light blockers to help your sleep wake cycles to get through. I'm kind of mixed on giving the guys melatonin. I don't necessarily like giving them or prescribing it too much, because a lot of them will get the melatonin hangover, and I don't really want them to be dependent on it, but like a little bit, like 0.5 milligrams, like, which is a physiological dose of melatonin, is okay. And like a lot of guys will take CBD and everything. And I think what you should be addressing, if you feel like you need to take those things before sleep, like speak to a sleep practitioner and a sleep clinician. There's probably some other underlying sleep disorder that you probably need to address before going there. So having that conversation and being able to point it towards the right people. And they're just fundamental basics, bro, that like everyone can start doing. But like I said, your training is only as good as your recovery. And we know that sleep is the bedrock for your recovery.
Do you find that, I guess, like with the athletes, like, have they had difficulty with the sleeping aspect of it, and like, trying to kind of go to, trying to find a proper rest? And because, man, like sometimes a lot of people, they're training late at night, right? And your body's kind of still buzzing from it, and you can eat, and sometimes when you have a good meal as well, your body tends to kind of relax, but even then you're just awake. Like I used to have sleep apnea, and so that's why, like, I've always been very interested in it, because I went to a sleep clinic, like and they did a study and fucking wired me up and did everything, and like I'd stop breathing overnight, things like that, and so ever since then I was always very interested in the best way to have adequate sleep. But what's some of your advice in those situations to your athletes when they like, I know you mentioned things like CBD and all that, like, do you see that as optimal things to kind of take? Because some of the guys that I speak to, I ask them about, and they, they I don't know, like they live by it. I've tried it. I don't know if that really works for me. If it's working, like I've had the drops and etc. And I've tried that, and it doesn't really do much, to be honest, bro. So is it something that you kind of push on them, or is it something that they've kind of, based on their own research and just, just trying it themselves? But like, what's your advice? Like, what's your advice to them when they're in that situation?
Well, like, man, they're going to push it on you because they've got like some shoddy little sponsorship deal where they get sent like a couple. Yeah, they've got some crappy little deal where it's like they'll get like a free few bottles of CBD, and then because really, man, I'll be honest, like where we're at with CBD, and I'll say this, bro, like being an investor in like CBD things, the research is mixed. We don't know. Like, I think there's a lot of promise, but right now, as it stands, there's literally no research to support that CBD helps sleep. There's no research to support that CBD helps inflammation. There's a bit of research in athletes that say, maybe for anxiety, it might help. But for the rest, we're so far behind. That's not to say that there's not going to be in the future. I think there's definitely in the future, as we figure out the doses and the pharmacokinetics of CBD a lot more, then but right now, like, obviously, bro, like, just these guys are they're just the ambassadors pushing it. But this is the thing when it comes to sleep, bro, is like I said earlier, a lot of these things are just masking agents, probably for a bigger sleeping disorder, which you need to talk to a clinician about. And even if you don't have that, like something like sleep apnea, something that we do, like we work very closely with Dave Wood from Woody's movement workshop. I think he calls it Woody's integrated training now. But he's probably, I'd say he's the leading breath coach in Australia and New Zealand and this part of the world, like trained under Patrick McEwen. And his whole philosophy, and like you said, anyone that is trained at night can appreciate this. If you go sparring, you're wired. You're so wired, bro, for hours after. And it makes sense. Your fight or flight hormones, your adrenaline, everything is just rocketed because you're literally like the very few people on this earth that go through that fight or flight response legit. Like someone's trying to beat the shit out of you. Those hormones are just flying for hours. So Dave's big thing with the athletes, and this is a huge problem with athletes that train at night and then have to go back in the morning, your central nervous system is in fight mode. So you've got your autonomic nervous system and it's just fight, boom, 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 boom. So your sympathetic tone is high. And that's what keeps you going in that fight mode. The adrenaline's going, but you need to turn the parasympathetic tone up, which is what allows you to relax. And like, how do you do that? And so a lot of the guys will do breathing exercises, you know, they'll learn how to do meditation. They'll learn how to do this to bring that parasympathetic tone up, wind down the sympathetic tone, balance everything out, and then you can get a good night's sleep. And we know sleep is what's going to give you the foundation for that recovery. So whether or not like CBD, magnesium, melatonin, like don't get me wrong, they all have a place. Like they absolutely have a place and they can be it. But I think it's those underlying issues first. Like maybe you got sleep apnea, no matter how much breathing, like breathing is legit going to help if you have sleep apnea, like learn how to breathe out of your nose, but address that, and then, okay, let's look at like what you can do to increase that parasympathetic tone. Once you've got that down pat, hey, maybe something like CBD, melatonin, and magnesium just helps you drift off faster. Okay, let's add that in. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
mix it up.
There's a bit of a hierarchy there of what you should be doing.
Yeah, it's good to hear about the meditation aspect of it because, like I was telling my wife the other day, I'm like, man, I'm gonna try meditate. I meditate in the morning, but I was like, I would love to try meditating at night because, I'm up at night, man. Like sometimes and late at night as well. So the other day I tried it. Obviously, I want to try it more regularly, but. Breathing is, you're right. Breathing is a big aspect that I dived into. Thanks to Rick, training with him, I got introduced to someone, and that really changed a lot of those little underlying issues for me as well. But it's very interesting to see that breathing, just the level of breathing and trying, different ways of breathing helps helps it out in a big aspect. Because like you said, like magnesium, all those things, like I've tried them, but like. Everyone's different, but I think you're right. Like, I think sometimes there's underlying issues, and no matter how much supplements and no matter what kind of thing you take, it's not gonna do anything. It's not gonna aid you to be able to sleep better or anything like that. So that's why I had that question for you. I was quite interested to ask you after you had that chat. So, another thing I've noticed, bro, that you've kind of brought to the market is a supplement, right? Talk to me a little bit about that, man. I've been seeing it kind of floating around a little bit. I've seen some of the athletes using it. Is that something you concoct together, like based on what you think these guys need with the training? Like, tell me a little bit more in detail about it.
Yeah, Train Aid. It's an expensive
Train Aid. That's it. Yeah.
I wish someone told me how expensive it was because I just wanted to do it to help the athletes out. Because I didn't realize, how much moolah you put into it. But nah, it's cool, man. It's like I said, it's the exact same for sleep as it is for nutrition, bro. I'm a guy who's invested a lot of money in like this supplement company, and I'll say like not everyone needs sups. It's like I've been involved in like nutrition for so long and dealt with other supplement companies and like. At the end of the day, bro, like I say this to people, and this is coming from someone who runs a supplement company. At the end of the day, if all the supplements on earth disappeared, nothing would change in the world. Like, sure, like, and I'm talking not clinical supplements, like where people need like drips and feeds to live and stuff, but like sports supplements, the world would churn on. Olympians would still like keep making PBs. Fighters would keep getting better. Rugby league players would keep jumping higher and becoming stronger, faster, fitter. Like, they're not absolutely necessary, but in certain cases, for certain people in certain environments, they can be. And I guess over the years, what I kind of identified was that there's probably 95% of them were just rubbish. And there's probably 5% of them that have some merit for some of my athletes that probably could use them. And then out of that 5%, there just wasn't a lot on offer that I was like real confident in. And like, the thing is with supplements is that in my mind, they should be very simple. Like for the first thing we made with Train Aid was just a hydration drink and it's an electrolyte drink. People are like, what's in it? It's like, well, just electrolytes. Like, what else? BCAAs and Amazonian berries and all this. Like, no, just electrolytes. And like, why? It's like, it's just what I need my guys to take is just electrolytes. And you just need to formulate it in a specific way. And it's always like, so complicated. So I just got to a point where I was like, man, like I need my guys to take something to help with their hydration because they were just consistently rocking up to training dehydrated for whatever reason, they do their training in the morning, they rock up, already be dehydrated, wouldn't hit their fluid plan during, and then straight after they'd go to like a vending machine and get a fizzy drink and then get like maybe like a Gatorade or something, which is okay, but it's like nowhere near the amount of fluid and electrolytes they need. Then they'd go about the day, eat their lunch, and then they'd come back for nighttime, and then they train again, start dehydrated, then get more dehydrated. And it was just something I just kept noticing with like all my guys. And I was like, man, like, why is this not like more of an issue that is brought up more? And then, so I guess like my solution, which is like a very expensive way to make a point to these guys, was to kind of create this supplement brand and kind of make it cool, like to make hydrating cool. Like I literally remember, bro, being at like a film set where we were filming like marketing for this. And I was like, man, how ridiculous is this? Is that we have to get all these athletes, we have to put on all this. So we got 3 camera guys, all these lights, for them literally just be like, oh yeah, I'll take my hydration more seriously.
For their own well-being.
For their own well-being. But I guess that's just the world we live in now.
Yeah, 100%, man.
Like I've seen it, bro. And like, I think really, bro, like I like what the brand's doing. I think it's cool because like, it's not so much like a traditional supplement company, like the people that come on and kind of sell it. We're not trying to like, be like, okay, like, give all your athletes all these supplements and that, like we give them education series. If they come on as a wholesaler, we take them through a full like nutrition curriculum and teach them when they're selling it to these guys to say to the athletes, hey, like there's a hierarchy to this, and you know, supplements are probably the last thing you want to look at. Make sure you get all of these other things in place first. So you know what, man, like it kind of just started as something as like, oh yeah, I need these guys to get some hydration in, and now it's kind of turning into this cool little educational tool, which is really fun.
Yeah. So with going back to like them being dehydrated, or you know, finding out or noticing that they're dehydrated, and is it that they need more than, is it a situation with these like high level athletes and the amount of time that they train? Is it a lack of the fact that water is just not enough and they need a little bit more, or is it that they're not drinking enough water, and then that kind of is like, okay, you know, we need to kind of get more fluids in you? So, or is it like a mix of both? Because obviously water is like kind of the number one thing, right? Like you should be drinking a certain amount of water every day. But is it something that the fact that the body requires a little bit more than that?
Yeah, so it's funny, man, because like I would say water in terms of hydration power is the worst thing you can have. So it's
right.
When you're sweating, and again, this is like in the context of athletes who train say twice a day. So like me and you should be drinking a good amount of water. Your body's 60 to 70% water. You should put in, if people are listening and they want a recommendation, 30 milliliters times your body weight in kilograms is how much water you should be drinking per day. And then athletes, you think, man, you know, you go to a Muay Thai session and then roll that into a wrestling session afterwards, you're training for 3 hours, you could lose between 3 and 4, 5 kilos of sweat in that session. And that's not uncommon. And like one liter per hour is very common. The thing is, when you sweat, you're not just sweating out water, you're sweating out electrolytes. You're losing sodium, potassium, magnesium, chloride, all these other things. And sodium, when it comes to hydration and water balance in the body, is king. So say when you sweat, you lose, let's say, 1,000 milligrams of sodium per liter of sweat, and you just lost out 3 liters. So you've lost 3,000 milligrams of sodium with that water. But then you just put back in 3 liters of water. And the way your body works is that your body has no real detection system for water by itself. The way it detects water in the body is by how much sodium is in there. So your body is now sodium depleted, and you've just put in a bunch of water without replacing that sodium. So your body is going to go, oh, low sodium. We must have lots of water on board, because when you take sodium and you surround it with lots of water, you dilute it. So your body goes, okay, so we've got plenty of water, which you don't. So it just keeps peeing. So it keeps peeing out. And so drinking that water, you get more dehydrated, which is very counterintuitive to a lot of people. So that's why putting the electrolytes back in is really important, because you go, okay, I just lost 3,000 milligrams of it. You need to put that back in, because then your body goes, okay, we've got this in. I'm going to hold on to the water I just put in. So it's going to keep that water, and then that water is going to move through some different compartments and get back to your cells where it needs. And like a big reason we made it as well, bro, is like weight cutting, obviously. Like when you're cutting weight, we're moving in, 3-4 hours. We're strategically moving 5% of these guys' body weight, which often looks like 2, 3, 4 kilos of water. I need to make sure when I'm putting that water back in, that it's going to the cells in the body. They're not just peeing it back out. It's going back to their brain, going back to their organs. Because these guys in 36 hours need to go in a cage and get punched. So kicked and grappled, you know? So it's quite important. And I think, again, man, coming back, this is just me doing this for years with guys, being on the ground. And like, there's all these weird supplements, but I'm not bagging out other supplements, but there's a supplement for everything, but there just seemed to be no supplement for the things that were important in practice. So I was just like, oh man, like this is an important thing. And I'm lucky, bro, because like I've got a good network, and like I can't take the credit for like formulating train aid hydration. Like I'm very, very lucky that I'm connected with some very, very smart people in the sports nutrition realm, and guys that have been researching how to best hydrate people for 20 years, but they love combat sports, but they've never had a platform say to do it. And then I can all of a sudden come up and go, hey, I want to do this. And they go, oh my God, like this is so cool. I've actually been working on this and then I got to, you know, make it into a supplement that you and I and all these fighters and other athletes and office workers and nurses and what can take. So yeah, it's very cool.
I guess in this day and age as well, Geordie, like it's like fucking drugs, bro. Like there's supplements everywhere, right? And like, you know what I mean? It's just like,
you want it, we got it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like they're just selling it, and it's just, you know, and like you said, man, with supplements and with all these different products, like comes this big marketing scheme behind it too, right? And you know, as human beings, if we want something, then we'll find that message in whatever marketing scheme it is. We'll see, oh yeah, they're talking to me. Yeah, they're talking to me. You know what I mean? So it's that's very interesting, man. Very interesting. And it's a perfect segue, man, to what I wanted to bring up next was you've been putting a lot of cool posts and very serious posts about weight cutting and the weight cutting process and making sure that you have someone that really understands what they're doing. I guess for the general public, bro, in layman's terms, touch a little bit about the weight cutting process and what goes on during fight week, leading into them weighing in, and then I know you touched on a little bit with rehydrating them, but if you could just talk a little bit about that process and what goes on and what's the requirement and etc., man, that'll be pretty awesome.
Yeah, so during the fight week, it's kind of like the last phase of our nutrition phase. So like you lose body fat during the 6, 8, 10 weeks, whatever it is during that fight camp, you're in that calorie deficit, lose your body fat, and then you get to say 5 to 7 days out from your weigh-in and you start your fight week, which is just like an arbitrary number of days. But during that time, what you want to do is not lose any more body fat. Like the time to lose body fat is done. So what you want to do is you want to manipulate fluid in the body, and we call it non-essential mass. And the way you manipulate that fluid in the body, like I said earlier, your body is 60 to 70% fluid. So there's a lot of fluid in there that you can manipulate to a certain extent that is safe. And we know that for guys and females, we would say 10% of your body weight over the course of say 5 to 7 days using the correct strategies is probably pretty safe if you know how to rehydrate them and reload them and put it all back in safely. So we can say, like, I don't know, man, say you weigh 77 kilos. I could say, hey, bro, in 7 days.
That's exactly what I weigh, by the way.
Yeah.
Good guess, bro.
7 kilos in 5 days. And like, yeah, you won't feel amazing, but like we can do it and I'll get you there pretty safely and it'll be fine. But the way you do that is by manipulating 3 nutrients in the body. So fiber, carbohydrates, and sodium. So fiber, what you're doing is, I always explain, it's like you're manipulating gut content. And to appreciate why this works, and fiber is healthy. Everyone always throws this question at me. It's like, man, what the hell? Like fiber is healthy. Why would you cut it out? It is absolutely healthy. You should be eating minimum 30 grams of fiber every day. But for these 3 days before you weigh in, you should remove fiber, because when you eat fiber, unlike the other things in your body that majority get digested and absorbed in say your small intestine, like get broken down your stomach and your small intestine and go in your bloodstream, they move into your large intestine and then passes through, and that's what we send off to the toilet, down to the plumbers. So that's mass that's passing through our intestine. The thing is, our intestine is like 18 meters long. So if you take it out and throw it, it's really long. So it can take up to 5 to 6 days, anywhere between, depending on the individual, 3 to 6 days to pass food from when you eat it from your mouth to your bum. So then you go, okay, so at any one time between those days, you just have lumps of matter that's sitting in your gut, that's weighing you down, that isn't really doing anything. Like, yes, it's doing stuff in the sense of like your good bacteria in your large intestine. Put all that to the side. Put all that to the side. We're making weight. So what you can do is you can reduce the fiber in your body, which reduces the amount of content in your large intestine or your intestines as it passes through, which is less physical weight in your body. So that can usually equate to 1 to 2% of your body weight. And if you're 77 kilos or whatever, so that's like anywhere between, what's that, like 700 grams to 1.4 kilos that you can just lose by just reducing your fiber. It's pretty easy. The next thing that you can do is reduce your carbohydrates, which is by glycogen depleting. So glycogen, when we eat carbohydrates, our body can store it away as like storage cupboards in our muscles and our liver, essentially just as like a reserve volume energy. You say if a bear jumps through the window and you're like, shit, I got to run or fight off this bear. You need some fast energy to do that. Glycogen is that fast energy. Thing with glycogen, our body stores it alongside water. So say you eat some carbohydrates, you put away 1 gram of glycogen in your muscles, you have to put that away with anywhere between 2 and 4 grams of water. So now you've got that 1 gram of glycogen and let's just say 3 grams of water. That's 4 grams of physical weight that's sitting in your muscles. And so your muscles, like the dry weight of your muscles, can hold anywhere up to 2% of your dry weight of your muscles can be glycogen. So when you do the maths and you work it out, if you reduce the carbohydrate coming in the diet, you do some exercise that depletes and pulls out that glycogen from the muscles, you can lose anywhere, usually between, say for you, if you're 77, it'd be work out to be like 1.4 to 2.6 kilos of weight by removing that glycogen and all the water that's attached to it. And you move that out of the body. And the next thing that you do is sodium, and then sodium is salt. So when you, like I said earlier, like your body doesn't really know what's going on in terms of fluid balance unless there's salt there. So wherever salt goes, water will follow it. So it makes sense when you reduce that salt and say you stop eating exogenous salt in your diet, you start peeing out more water and your body will carry less water. So doing all of those things is what we call moving non-essential mass. But what you are doing, and I think this is a misconception that a lot of fighters and a lot of athletes, even practitioners, don't understand. When you're doing that, you're dehydrating the athlete every single day. Like a lot of people think when you get to the sauna or you get to the bath, okay, that's when you start dehydrating these guys. And it's like, no, pal, you've been dehydrating this guy for 5 days. So that's why it's really important that you dial in these numbers and it's not just like willy-nilly throw at the wind. Okay, we'll cut carbohydrates, we'll cut all their fiber, we'll cut the sodium. You need to know how much you're taking off that person because every day they're progressively getting more dehydrated. And like we've done in-house studies where we've tested guys' hydration levels every day through fight week. And it's shown that even when they are water loading, as I'm sure a lot of you guys will know, like they'll drink, say like 8 liters a day for 3-4 days and slowly bring it down. And what that essentially does is helps you remove more fluid from your body. But what you also see is that guys wake up more dehydrated each day, which makes sense in everything I just said. So by the time you get to that bath or you get to that sauna, where what we're called plasma volume depleted or fluid volume depleted. So the fluid in your blood has actually dropped and that gets dangerous. And that's essentially why weight cutting can be so dangerous, because when you're sweating, like you think of your body, your blood circulating around your body, the blood is what's dropping off oxygen and nutrients and everything else to your cells. And water is what's keeping it kind of like the viscosity and like the composition of it nice so it can flow through and do everything. As you take out water, it gets thicker and then the function of the blood goes down. So then your body has a lot of compensatory mechanisms where your blood pressure will drop to keep it up, and you'll put a lot more strain on your heart and a lot more strain on your organs because it's getting less oxygen and nutrients. So what people need to understand is like, yes, you can do this and we can do it for about 10%, but it has to be a very structured, methodical and well thought out process because what's happening is that you're strategically dehydrating this guy before you put him in a bathtub or a sauna where you're whacking them with, heat exposure, where you're going to dehydrate them even further. So you're taking a dehydrated human being into an environment where they're going to get more dehydrated. So there's a lot of risk involved with that. And you need to know how to, okay, where have we entered this problem? how are we going to manage it? How are we going to monitor them? What's normal for them? We know that they're fluid volume depleted. Okay, we know that their blood pressures are going to drop. We're going to see like these changes in the heart rate. What's normal for them and what is to be expected given that we've dropped this weight in these days leading up to it. We know that they're dehydrated. What's to be expected? And then what's outside of that realm of expectation where I go, okay, shit, that's dangerous. That shouldn't be happening. We need to stop this and we need to start rehydrating you. So that's where I think a lot of people now, man, now that especially it's getting like bigger, and I know, and to be fair, I'll point the finger at myself. Like, I think we probably have a big part of blame to take for this, is that we've put it on social media where people might have the false idea that, oh, it's not actually that bad. Like, you just follow these principles and then you do this and it's way safer. But it's like, yeah, it is way safer, but you have to understand the intricacies of what you're doing because, and I don't know if this is meant to be public knowledge, and I won't name what promotion, but there's been some very kept away from the media, big events where big promotions, people have flatlined doing these weight cuts recently. And it's because the teams around them don't know what they're doing. And maybe they are following these principles and they think they know what they're doing, but they don't understand how it all works in together and what is within the realm of safety and the expectation. And okay, what do we do if this metric goes out the window? How do we compensate and get everything back on? And then at the end of the day, the person suffers is the one you're putting in the bathtub. And if you don't know what you're doing, bro, that's a stressful thing to put your body through. Like I said, your heart can shut down, your organs can shut down, you can have a seizure, you can go into a coma, you can literally be going that bathtub, and that could be the last thing you ever do. So it's like, it's no joke. And like I said, like, we put it out on social media and it kind of looks cool. Like, don't get me wrong, like, we're kind of clever how we put it out, but that message has always been the same. You've got to be very careful with what you're doing, you know. And I think that's where our next move with the company is going to be, is like getting that education out and getting people, hey, you're interested in it. It's cool. You want to make a difference, but like, hey, come over here and we'll teach you how to do this properly. And you need to understand all these ins and outs because you're literally playing with people's lives.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's crazy because like the very minute details that goes into it, man, I can tell you right now, I reckon the majority wouldn't even know, you know, like what you've just explained in terms of just the minute details that goes into getting the weight off, you know, of an athlete. But then balance, it's that balance, right? It's like you take something out, you got to put it back, but then it's like if something goes, then it's going to affect something else, and then it's just this, like, it's like there's no like there's no like there's like a trade-off, you know. Like, another big aspect is just that whole sodium, and just how sodium plays such a big part in, you know, when people think sodium, people think, oh, just you know, reduce, you know, take the sodium out, and, you know, et cetera, but then it's like that affects the water intake. And that was very interesting when you talked about like how you're constantly you're constantly peeing, right? Like, it makes sense why. Like, I never knew that played a big part in it. But it's just even taking sodium out, like, you got to be careful. Okay, if you're going to take this out, it's going to affect this. And also, like, I think, you know, man, like, a lot of people, they you know, they cut down to very dangerous weight classes too, bro. You know what I mean? Like, and, you know, like, it's funny, man. I was watching, you know, be mindful of the time, but I was watching the fight between Brandon Moreno and Figueiredo, the second one. And bro, I picked it up well before Figueiredo walked into the cage. I was like, I remember messaging my brother. I'm like, bro, I'm telling you, this guy, he's had a very bad weight cut, man. Like, he doesn't look good. He looks like a zombie, like, you know, and just his mannerisms and just, you know, like, obviously I don't know too much about like you said, the minute details, but, you know, you could tell, bro, when something's up, you know what I mean? And like, even in that fight, Moreno just looked like a superstar. And I was telling everyone, I was like, it's not that he was, like, skillfully, yeah, he was better, but I just saw, like, Davis and Figueiredo, he wasn't really throwing much, and he was very, like, he was just frozen, bro. He was just in a state of like it looked like he just couldn't go into second, third, fourth gear, and this is their second fight. I've seen the dude fight before, like, you know what I mean? The dude was champion, right? So, and then it came out afterwards, like the dude had a bad weight cut and stuff like that, you know, and and it showed in the fight, like it showed. And he's, I think naturally, they said that he naturally walks around, and it was like, man, you know, they're ridiculous, right? They put on like 30 pounds, 40 pounds when they're walking around. But the amount of weight that dude had to cut for a flyweight division was ridiculous, man. And you know, and you could see in his face, like, man, it must have not been done properly, because he just looked like, man, he looked like he was in the climax between passing out and, you know what I mean, and then trying to perform at a high level, bro. It's a championship fight, you know what I mean? Like, and so it's just very good to get an insight, man, what goes into it. And it's really good, man, that you're putting it out on social media, because I know you were saying like, oh, you know, we're part to blame, but man, I just think people don't realize how dangerous it is. And I don't think people realize how much weight people are actually dropping to make these these divisions. Because sometimes they look at these guys, you know, like, you know, and think, oh yeah, man, like they look lean, they look, you know, and they don't realize that they don't really see them too much when they're just walking around, not in fight camp, you know what I mean? And they don't realize how big these dudes are, you know? And so what kind of process they need to kind of go through in order to really lose that weight, you know what I mean? It's like they're losing a lot of weight. So
sure.
It's really good, man, to just get a, you know, a close up kind of, you know, idea of what really goes on. But look, Geordie, I won't take too much of the time. I know you got something at 9 o'clock, man, so I want to give you a little bit of fucking break before you deal with everything else. But bro, it's so good chatting to you, man. It's keep putting all that information out, bro. Like you know, there's people like me, man, that just love reading that stuff, and you know, it's just general knowledge, and so good to see you, man, growing as well. And it's so good to see that when things are working well, you're still not satisfied, man. You're still trying to find better ways and keep refining the process. And it's so good, man. Like, just when I was talking to a lot of the athletes, I've had them here that are part of the Fight Dietitian Club, you know, and they all tell me, man, they just all trip out at how much they eat and all this, you know, like we spoke about at the start. And it's just good to see them in a good space, man, because, you know, a lot of these guys are my friends, and it's so good to see them in a really good headspace as well when they're training, you know. Yeah, man, I always enjoy your work, bro. I always enjoy reading your stuff as well when you put it out on social media. So yeah, keep doing your thing, brother. And I really appreciate you giving your time, man. I know you're fucking mad busy and shit. So I really appreciate you always giving your time, man. And I always enjoy our chats, bro. Yeah.
No, I appreciate it, bro. I really do. I'll give a world first, I guess we'll say. It's cool, especially with all that Into the Deep podcast gets the first thing. We just expanded out the team a bit, and what we're doing, bro, I think, like you said, a lot of what we're doing now is that education base, and something I've wanted to do for a long time but never really knew how to do it is like create something for like the fighters, because like you said, man, like a lot of them will do it, we'll take them through, and it's more than just giving them a diet plan. It's like educating them about these principles and being like what we went over, like talking about their metabolism and these principles in the fight. And I think during fight week, and that's our big philosophy, is like we should make ourselves redundant, right? Is that we should be able to educate these guys enough that they can go educate their teammates. And what we've decided to do is build out what we're going to call essentially the TFD Performance Hub, where we're going to open up this little portal. We're going to tap into the extremely cool network that I've been fortunate enough to build over the last couple of years, and get all these lecture series, get all these little courseworks that not only just other practitioners, but athletes and just enthusiasts like yourself can go into. You can log in there, and that information is there. And, you know, we're going to teach these courses and really break it down on a level, and break it down to a point where we make it very obvious where, you know what, like this is dangerous and this is what you should be looking out for. But like really, like to a point, it's gotten to a point where we feel like that's necessary. Like we don't want to see anyone getting harmed. Like I think it's so ridiculous, bro, that there is a risk that you could die just to participate in a sport that you love. That is so beyond ridiculous.
It's crazy when you think about it.
It's beyond comprehension. So it's like the idea behind the Performance Hub is to give people this education and access to these guys that, you know, top level athletes like Israel Adesanya, Alexander Volkanovski, Brad Riddell, Kai Kara France, that these guys have access to and they've used to get to the top level. Now it can be like openly available for everyone. So we'll hopefully get that out by the end of the year, bro. So hopefully that adds a bit more value to everyone.
No, 100%. Thanks for dropping it on the podcast too, bro. I appreciate it. But
Nah, of course. Always enjoy chatting though, bro. Appreciate
thank you,
having me
bro.
on.
I know, like, yeah, man. I always see, it's always very, very detailed conversations with others, but man, it's just, sometimes I know there's a big group of people, including myself, that just, they just love to know this stuff, man. It's just, just good information to know, and it's just interesting, I guess, so. No, it's always good chatting to you, bro. Like I said, always love watching what you do, and yeah, it was just the universe was talking to me recently saying, man, I got to get Geordie back, because I was like, just a lot of the stuff, and you don't want to miss the boat either. Like there's always this phase where you know what I mean, like the weight cutting is a big aspect, and so I was like, you know what, jump now before it kind of goes past and I forget to even chat about it, so no, I appreciate you, bro.
Sure.
Keep doing your thing, and man, I'm so proud to see things growing and going the direction it is, man. You're definitely, as legit as they come, man. So and it's good to see it finally paying off. So bro, all the best, man. I'll be watching from afar, and good luck, brother.
Bro, thank you so much.